Hello everyone, can I welcome you to our September Ordinary Council meeting and open the meeting. Can I firstly say that tonight we are live streaming and recording of our council meeting. So this council meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded and published online via Facebook. To those present in the meeting today, by participating in this public meeting, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. The Mayor and or the General Manager have the authority to pause the live stream if comments or debate are considered defamatory or otherwise inappropriate for publishing. Participants are advised that they may be subject to legal action if they engage in unlawful behaviour or commentary. Thank you everyone. With opening the meeting, could I have two apologies that we have. The first one is from Councillor Christine Adams. Dear Mr. General Manager, please submit my apology request for leave of absence for the ordinary meeting Wednesday the 30th of September 2020. I will be recovering from major surgery. Councillor Christine Adams. And the second one I have is from Councillor Jim Nolan. Please accept my apologies and I hereby request a leave of absence for this meeting. I regret at short notice I've been required to work. I was only informed 15 minutes ago. So we have two apologies we need to accept for this meeting. We don't need a mover for the apologies, do we? Can I have a mover for the apologies, please? Councillor LaCour, second Councillor Brown. Thank you, councillors. All those in favour, press green. Against, press red. That's Councillor Michelli, Councillor LaCour, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate. Thank you very much, councillors. I'll say the prayer. Almighty God, we ask you to invoke your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper our deliberation to the advancement and true welfare of the people of the council area, our state and Australia. Amen. Can I invite Councillor Gallagher to do the acknowledgement of country?
Yes, I acknowledge the traditional owners upon the land upon which we meet and pay our respect to those elders, both past, present and emerging.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. We'll move now to the minutes for confirmation. This is the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the council meeting for Wednesday the 26th of August. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Gallagher, seconder. Seconder by Councillor LaCour. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Gallagher? No. Any discussion?
Reserve my right.
Okay, no discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to disclosures of interest. I'll go first. Councillors, I have a non-pecuniary conflict in report number 130/20. My husband is a member of the golf club. As such, I will leave the meeting. Councillor Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a conflict with the confidential item in that I'm a member of the board of the organisation that's involved in that item.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any further disclosures of interest? No further disclosures of interest. Thank you. We'll move on. We'll move to item 7, Merrill minutes, for which there is none. And then item 8, notice of motion. Notice of motion, which notice has been given. Report number 13/20, dated September 18th, relating to internal review process for the issuing of fines. Councillor Kennedy, are you moving your motion?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Allgate, thank you. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My argument is that the Broken Hill City Council should consider this because the Fines Act, the New South Wales Fines Act, states that the issuing agency should have an internal review process. Currently, Council does not have an internal review process. We rely on the State Debt Recovery Office to do that review. People that have approached council administration to have their fine reviewed are told in the first instance that is not a council responsibility. After it being pointed out they should have a review process. The fine is directed back to the issuing officer who refuses to deal with it and tells those subjects of the fine to approach the Debt Recovery Office or take it to court. It is unacceptable that the officer who issued the fine has any part to play in reviewing the fine in the first instance. It goes against the perception of procedural fairness. As we all know, some are deserving of fines and some have authentic reasons to dispute those fines. An example that was directed to me recently described the above happening. He pulled over in a no-stopping park for what was described as a medical emergency and tried to have his fine reviewed. The State Debt Recovery Office, who he'd first rung, said they would likely withdraw the fine, but told him it was a council decision and directed him back to council. Council directed him back to the State Debt Recovery Office who make a recommendation to council. Before he was directed back to the State Debt Recovery Office, it was first put past the issuing officer. The issuing officer refused to even look at it. We as a council and a community need an internal review process to ensure those that are wrongly fined have the right to be judged by an independent local panel that takes into account local circumstances, as opposed to the generic process that the State Debt Recovery Office has. Many councils in New South Wales have an internal review of their fines. Our council does not, and there's a few councils around the state that do not. Having an internal review will give the community faith in the Broken Hill Council's process of issuing fines. Innocent people should not be forced to pay significant costs to go to court to prove their innocence. Council just recently issued a press release talking about fines in Argent Street. It went on to say that council do not want to fine people as it's not a good thing, but it's important that people follow direction. What an internal review process will do will show that anyone that is wrongfully fined or has an authentic excuse will not have to go through the process of the State Debt Recovery Office. Instead, they could go through an independent panel that council elects or writes a policy to do. This will have a great effect, not only for the community, but a good PR for council. I think it's important that the council comes across as a caring institution that goes well beyond what is written in the Act. I notice a lot of the comments made by the General Manager in this is talking about the council as an institution. The General Manager's first responsibility and only real responsibility is to the council and the administration of the council. The obligation of councillors go well beyond that and are way more important than the obligations of the General Manager. The obligations of us as councillors is to make sure we have a community has confidence in the council, but also we have a community that has confidence in the Broken Hill system. We as a council want to encourage people to live in Broken Hill. We want people that do live in Broken Hill to be happy. This is our opportunity as councillors to set the direction. We all should take note of what the General Manager says and what recommendations he says, but remembering each time we do take note of what the General Manager says, the General Manager makes comment from a perspective as the council as an organisation. We go beyond that. We have a far greater responsibility to the community than the General Manager does have to the council. We have an obligation to be efficient and effective with the council, but also we have a role to govern the city and govern the city in a manner that is makes Broken Hill a place we all want to live. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Any speakers against? No speakers against. Councillor Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I will speak against. I'm sorry, I'd have to take these earphones out. I can't hear. Very difficult to hear with those earphones in. I will speak against this. It just seems to me that on the basis of one reported incident, we are considering, or Councillor Kennedy is asking us to consider forming yet another community committee, which presumably would look at the evidence which council has in the case of a disputed fine, which seems to me to be a very unwieldy kind of prospect. I'd like to have a few more details about this, again, about this specific incident, because it seems to me, reading the report and the general manager's comment and the very comprehensive process that's outlined by the State Revenue Office, that there are ample avenues for people to query and have their fines dismissed. And I know a number of people who've successfully gone through that process. So I think it would be counterproductive for this council to attempt to duplicate that and then try and grapple with, finding people to go on a committee like this, finding terms of reference that would allow them to decide whether a fine is valid or not. So for those reasons, I think this would be an unworkable solution to a problem that I really don't know is an extensive one.
Thank you. Speakers for the motion? Councillor Allgate? We just unmute you, Councillor Allgate. And those that are not speaking, if we can just mute you, including James at this end.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can now.
As I was saying, I think the council would not have a problem in terms of developing or forming a review committee, which could largely comprise independent people at arm's length from the council. But the whole system gets back to, I feel, the council has a moral responsibility to give the people an opportunity who feel that they're innocent, an opportunity to at least put their case to somebody, and that somebody would be the independent committee. Too often we as a council, we just seem to ignore our moral responsibilities. We seem to be operating on a purely commercial only basis. People's feelings, people's expectations, community expectations seem to be ignored. So often it's not funny. I can't see the reason why a simple committee, a review committee, can't be formed, and that committee could constitute or could comprise largely independent members of the council, outside the council.
Thank you, Councillor Allgate. Speakers against the motion? No further speakers. Councillor Kennedy, would you like your right to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is not one case. I have many people that have come to me over the time. I've written many letters off to the State Debt Recovery on behalf of ratepayers of this city. I've also contacted the State Debt Recovery Office on a number of occasions, and on each of those occasions, whichever officer you speak to at the State Debt Recovery Office, they are surprised that the council does not have its own internal review policy and panel of its own to look at these fines. what the review panel does, what the State Debt Recovery Office does after they look at this, they can't waiver the fine. They must then send it back to council to decide whether they accept the judgment of the State Debt Recovery Office. So it's not for them to withdraw it. It goes back to the council to decide, even after this process. It goes back to the person who issued the fine, I would assume, but I don't know, because we don't have that process. We don't know. There wouldn't be a councillor here that could tell me exactly what happens with those fines when the State Debt Recovery Office sends them back to the Broken Hill City Council. Councillor Marion Brown said that she doesn't believe it's much of an issue, and then went on to say she knows of many cases that people have written off to the State Debt Recovery Office and had their fines overturned, which means that council has issued those fines either in error or with a reason to withdraw them as per the policy. So Councillor Brown in one sentence said that she doesn't think it's an issue, but in the next sentence said she knows many people that have gained relief from the State Debt Recovery Office, meaning that council issued the fine in some sort of error and the fine was overturned, removing that fine. What a policy would allow us to do is we could overturn it, or we could issue cautions. And I think in most instances, cautions would do a lot more to stop illegal parking or illegal anything in Broken Hill. What happens at the moment, and why I emphasise the press release, is that council does not want to issue fines. What we could do instead is, if we had a review panel, turn a lot of those fines into cautions. And I believe it would make policing of our parks and policing of all other fines that council issue much more effective and much more efficient. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put the vote. All those in favour? And against? That's Councillor Kennedy is in favour, and Councillor Allgate against is Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor LaCour, and myself. I think we lost Councillor Page. Okay, thank you. So that motion's been lost. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Page will be rejoining us soon. Item 2 is motions of which notice has been given. Report number 14/20, date September 18th, related to Broken Hill land rates. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to move this motion?
I would, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move it.
Seconder? Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Allgate. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like councillors to understand that this is about preparing a report and consider the following argument: that a business subcategory will allow council to rate the properties in the area at a different ad valorem rates in the dollar. If the mayor and councillors were to do this, it would bring businesses back in line across the board. 2.6 rate peg rise. An example property that paid $16,000 last year, increased it by 60%, would pay $25,600. $25,600, and has a land value of $322,000. The 2.6% increase on $16,000 would be $416. Introductory of a subcategory would allow council to change the ad valorem for Cananda Road precinct properties to 4.8 cents in the dollar instead of the 8.9 cents. This would allow properties in that area to only increase roughly by rate pegging. It's important that the Broken Hill City Council takes this step to ensure businesses located in the area are able to continue to operate. It has been stated that the increases in land values is a reflection of demand. This may be the case, but most businesses located in the industrial area started businesses under business models that paid way less. The General Manager, in his statement, said about that this may have numerous unintended consequences. This could all be written in the report, and this would allay many of the concerns that councillors may have. I see from emails that council has been contacted by a significant number of businesses that are in that area. The business policy that we talk about was intended to attract businesses to Broken Hill. So what the rate holiday was all about was to make sure that we attracted businesses. We certainly can use that same rate holiday to ensure that businesses stay in that area. We as a council have a higher duty than that of the General Manager. The General Manager's first responsibility and only real responsibility is to the administration and regulatory requirements of the Broken Hill City Council as an organisation. And we must take notice of what the General Manager says, but we must also take into account the General Manager is only talking about it from an organisation perspective. We as a community and as a council must take it from a higher perspective. We have not only a responsibility to the efficient and effective running of the council, we also have a responsibility to the community. We have a responsibility to the business community. We have a responsibility to ensure the future of Broken Hill remains strong. General managers and councillors will go over a period of time. The future of Broken Hill must remain. So that is why we as councillors must make sure that anything we do has the sustainability not only of the council itself, but sustainable for the community. And the rate rises out at Cananda Road are not sustainable. 55% increases by average is the statement the General Manager has made. This is not sustainable for any business. This is an opportunity for council to lead the way. And remember, to councillors, this is about getting a report. This is not about making a decision. This is about having the General Manager issue a report on potential costs, potential things we can do to alleviate that rate crisis that has been created in the Cananda Road precinct. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I do acknowledge that this rating issue, like all rating issues that those of us who've been around a while are very familiar with. And I also acknowledge that this increase in the value of land at Cananda Road, Pinnacles Place industrial area has been a great shock to the businesses out there. However, I don't believe that this what is proposed by Councillor Kennedy is the way to address this issue. So I have an amendment which I'd like to move, and that is that point one is point one on the notice of motion. Point two is that the Mayor seek an urgent meeting with the Valuer General to discuss the impact of the recent disproportionate increase in land values in the Cananda Road, Pinnacles Place industrial area. Point three, that the Our Economy Key Direction Working Group prepare a report to outline the impact on other business ratepayers and on residential ratepayers if a differential rate for the Cananda Road, Pinnacles Place industrial area were to be introduced.
Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Clark, thank you. Councillor Brown, would you also include item 2 to acknowledge?
Yes, Madam Mayor, except that I'm not certain. If it could be clarified that the average rate rise is approximately 60%, I'd be happy to increase that. But I mean, the wording of my amendment, I think, does acknowledge that it does acknowledge that the impact of that increase. I'm happy to include that if we can be confident that it is a 60% average rate rise.
Okay, Councillor
Just that
Clark,
I
you're
like
happy.
I like to have some specific figures in front of me.
I
That's
know.
fine.
Councillor
include
Clark, you're happy as the seconder that's included. Okay, Councillor Brown, will you speak to the motion?
Yes, just briefly. As we also are all aware, when we accept that increase according to whatever rate peg we're permitted each year, we are aware that that amount is to be recovered over the city as a whole. So if one category of ratepayers has a reduction, then that amount has to be made up by other ratepayers. Now, I'm also aware of the current plight of many businesses in town, many businesses. And I would suspect that the Cananda Road businesses probably haven't been as affected by COVID shutdown as many of the other businesses in town. Again, I'm only supposing this. I don't have any direct evidence, but would just be my guess that that's the case. I would like to have a closer look at the effect of redistributing any of the business rate onto the other business ratepayers. There are some very large businesses in town. I mean, you only have to look at the two shopping centres, for example. I know that their rates are extremely high, and any impact on their viability will affect the small business owners there. And I suspect businesses along Argent Street would also be very adversely affected if there is a significant increase to their rate. So I'd like to have a look at that and see what impact that would have on the other ratepayers. And I think that would be a very relevant task for our economy key working group. Yes, Madam Mayor, I think that's all I want to say at this stage.
Thank you. Speakers against the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak against the amendment. What the motion was about getting a report. It would have shown exactly what they pay in Cananda Road. We know exactly what the business rate is for Broken Hill, just over $3 million. So this would have all been done within the motion, but it would have at least sent the Cananda Road community some sort of positive output. Look, what's concerned is comments made by Councillor Marion Brown. The value of general, Councillor Brown has been around a long time. She knows the value of general bases their land value increases on the sale of only a few vacant lands. It doesn't take much to change those values. In the report, if the councillor had read it, it's a 55% increase in land values. Councillors should be aware from meetings that land values went down around the city. So the 60% increase in rates would be not only likely, but if the council had taken a little bit of time to check that out, would know for sure that that's what has happened. Another statement that was of real concern to me was the assumption by Councillor Brown about COVID shutdowns and it maybe not affecting those areas. I would hope that councillors read the emails that were sent in from businesses, and one business actually specifically mentioned COVID. So I think it's almost upsetting from a councillor or a councillor's perspective that a councillor on this Broken Hill City Council made the assumption, which was the complete negative of an email that was sent to councillors. Come on, as councillors, we've got to start looking after the community. It's fine to say and play these political games that result in just about everything I'm bringing up being spoken against, but to play games with the livelihoods of people in this community without taking the time to at least read emails from people that state COVID in their emails and then say, I do not think that that affected them, is very disappointing. It's very disappointing that Councillor Brown does not understand that the rate rises would have to be 60% considering the land value increases. A councillor that's been a councillor, I think, for over 30 years should surely know how land values work and how rates work subject to land values compared to rates in the dollar percentage-wise. Percentage-wise, Cananda Road went up. We know there's a limited number of businesses out on Cananda Road. We know that percentage-wise, they account for a very small percentage of land values paying per rates. What has happened is a 60% increase in rates. Councillor Brown spoke about the bigger users, Coles and Woolworths. If they had a 60% rate rise, they would be taking us to court. Let's face it. Perilia, who had a rate rise, took council to court. Council was found to be in the wrong, then won that. But council then took $1.6 million in rates off of the mines. Take $1.6 million off of rates in the mines without any concern whatsoever from Councillor Brown to put on residential rates and business rates, but now we're talking perhaps $150,000 odd. Now Councillor Brown is worried about how that's going to affect other businesses, residents, etc. But when it comes to $1.6 million from mines rates, no problem. We'll just pass that over to residential because, you know, Chinese-owned mines, we've got to look after those. But locally owned businesses out on Cananda Road, who cares? Very disappointing, Councillor Brown, very disappointing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And is there any speakers for the amendment? Councillor Clark?
Mute.
Yes, you're unmuted, Councillor.
Yes,
go ahead.
yes, thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, look, I take on board everything that Councillor Kennedy has said, and I don't think he's getting any argument with people being unsympathetic. I think that was a bit extreme, him trying to make that point. And also he has completely ignored the point that Councillor Brown was making about having to move the weight of rates onto other areas. I think it is a very good idea that an urgent meeting is sought by you, Madam Mayor, with the Valuer General. It does certainly seem that there has been a marked increase in these rates. I think that as the Valuer General is the area there that is responsible for pushing these rates onto properties, that we do this as soon as possible. I think that if we could have some kind of a review of that as well, some sort of a report to come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any further speakers against the amendment? No further speakers against. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour?
Rather reply for
Oh
councillor.
no, that's for when the motion becomes amendment.
Sorry.
Yeah. All those against? Okay, against the amendment is Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Allgate. For the amendment is Councillor Clark. You haven't voted yet. Is Councillor Brown, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor McCall, Councillor Page, Mayor Turley, Councillor, your green button down the bottom, thank you.
I am trying.
Councillor Clark. that motion now becomes the amendment. If there's no further debate, we'll go to Councillor Kennedy for a right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The way it's going to appear to the community, regardless of how Councillor Clark would like it to appear, is the fact that council will be unsympathetic. Council does have an ability to change this. The Valuer General doesn't decide rates, councils decide rates. The Valuer General sets land values subject to vacant land sales. Another thing, and this is where Councillor Clark has to be forgiven to a certain degree because she's relatively new to council and dealing with the Valuer General and land values. I cannot say the same for Councillor Brown or Councillor Turley or Mayor Turley, and that is the fact that the Valuer General, we have contacted them many times to deal with the rate disparity between North Broken Hill or the upper end of North and South Broken Hill. The reality is the Valuer General can do nothing about it. We as a council could do nothing about it because we cannot subcategorise land values between one area, residential area and another. Hence, we have a problem with Brown Street, we have a problem with Cummins Street, Wyman Lane, Wyman Street, and many other areas at the back end of Oxide Street, many other areas in Broken Hill where they're paying $3,000 or $4,000 in rates for residential rates as opposed to the average of $1,000. Some people were paying less, which is not right. What we can do when it comes to Commander Road, unlike what we can do with the residential rates, and that is we can actually subcategorise different areas of the industrial land. If we were to do that, this would fix the problem almost immediately. Councillors not doing it are choosing not to do it. Councillors are attempting to blame the Valuer General. The Valuer General is not the blame. The Valuer General sets land values subject to the sale of vacant land. That is a reality. In a small place like Broken Hill, it makes it hard. In Sydney, it's not so hard. But here is how it works. And how it works is the Valuer General, you can meet with the Valuer General all you like. The Valuer General sets those prices. Even if he was to half it, it still would have significant increases for that area. As a council, we've got to show the lead. We've got to do this, and we've got to make sure, as a council, we lead the community. Stop blaming others. Stop blaming Valuer Generals. You know you can do it. You know you're able to do it. You did it with the mine rates. You did it with the mine rates more than once. Councillor Brown did it with the mine rates in 2003, where she put a 22.8% rate rise, one-off rate rise from the mines onto the community, and then did it again with mine rates after that. This is almost epidemic when it comes to Councillor Brown and Mayor Turley. And I would hope that the community remembers this at election time in September next year. Thank you.
I'll put the motion.
Hold on. I've had my hand up for quite a while.
Councillor, I didn't see your hand up. We've had the right of reply. Do you have a question?
I'd just like to make comment that after the meeting with the Valuer General, that Broken Hill City Council puts out a press release or a detailed report on how the system works, what the options are. And yes, this issue does have to be dealt with. And I'm sure the Broken Hill City Council will take on board how, these changes can be made and must be made in the future because, yes, we want businesses to operate very well here and employ people. So the rates have to be affordable. And this issue, after your meeting with the Valuer General, we need to put together so the Broken Hill people can fully understand how the system works. It's not, or it is very complicated in some areas, but if the report goes into the Barry Daily Truth on all the minuses and the pluses, everyone will understand in the future. So I'd like to see that part of what you intend to do, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, I'll take that on board. Thank you, councillor. Sorry, I didn't see your hand. I'll ask if people notice people's hands up, let me know in case I miss them. Okay, I'll put councillor Brown's amendment, which is the motion. All those in favour and against? Okay, councillor in favour, councillor Page, councillor Clark, councillor Brown, councillor Gallagher, councillor Cool and Mayor Shirley, against councillor Kennedy and councillor Allgate. Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 3, motion of which notice has been given, report number 15/20 dated September 18, opening hours of the Visitors Information Centre and the Council Tourism Facilities. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move it.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Allgate. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like the council to consider the following argument, that the use of the council's employee expertise to market the city has a greater value than having them man the counters at the Visitors Information Centre. The Broken Hill tourism sector has been put under immense pressure from the COVID restriction and is looking for council direction and help to invigorate a flat market. The COVID-19 restrictions have opened a significant avenue for increased tourism and tourism revenue. The restrictions will and have forced New South Wales tourists to take holidays in our own state. This is an opportunity the Broken Hill community cannot afford to miss. To take full advantage of the potential tourism boom for the city, all council tourism assets must be opened to normal operating hours immediately. Council must gather together an itinerary that has tourists staying in the city and the region for the maximum time, spending the maximum amount of money. The best way to achieve this is a whole of city approach to tourism and with industry input. Again, I note the comments from the General Manager, and again, I note the General Manager is speaking from an operational perspective as opposed to a whole city approach. We are the governing body of council. Not only do we govern the community, our role under the Local Government Act is to represent the community and the interests of the community. We are actually the people that drive the strategic direction of the community as a whole, not just the council. We need to be doing things that encourages growth in the city. The tourism sector is, other than mining, is by far our most important industry. It is our industry that has a potential to grow. It's our industry that the Broken Hill community has already invested many, many millions of dollars in. It's an industry that brings back into the community many, many millions of dollars. This motion was moved because I was contacted by members of the tourism community who were concerned about what will happen to the tourism industry in Broken Hill if it is allowed to continue to head in this direction without council providing those assets that we have. Being part of the Tourism Association and being part of the Tourism Association for many years as a council representative, one of the things that council did very well was using our expertise within the council industry and our employees to market and sell Broken Hill. Broken Hill was a leading example of tourism, not only in New South Wales, but the whole of the country. I would like to see Broken Hill City Council and councillors take this opportunity to, again, reinvigorate this industry at a time when it is struggling. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Speakers against? Councillor Clark.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I don't know that I'm opposed to Councillor Kennedy's sentiments. I think I would like to propose an amendment, though, which may actually see us have a way forward here. And I would like to propose this amendment. That the General Manager be asked to find ways of increasing public access to council facilities to pre-COVID levels. Am I going too fast, Lisa? No? Okay.
No.
Using volunteer assistance where possible, after consultation with appropriate stakeholders and within current agreed budget constraints. A new sentence. A report should then be prepared for councillors prior to the October council meeting. I do this because it's quite obvious to see.
Councillor Clark, I'm just going to get a seconder for your amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Brown, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I do this because, you know, it is quite obvious that Broken Hill is bursting at the seams at the moment with tourists. And the next couple of months are our peak season for tourists. We're going to come into the very hot weather of Christmas and January soon. And I think that we need to move very swiftly to be able to take advantage of this particular time. We can't have people locked out of our facilities. And I say this, I have due regard to our budgetary constraints. I acknowledge the restrictions imposed upon all of us, all our businesses, all our facilities by the New South Wales Health Department as we're still in the midst of COVID, or certainly some areas are. And I like to acknowledge the extra work that's being done. I will state that is certainly being done by our staff in cleaning and recording information at these facilities where our tourists are coming. So that, I think, I would like to actually put that sense of urgency there, that the General Manager finds these ways of increasing public access to council facilities and how we can use our volunteers, and that a report be prepared for us before the October council meeting.
Madam Mayor.
I can't hear anyone speaking.
I just wanted to ask a question, Madam Mayor.
I can't hear anyone either except for
Sorry,
Bob.
James had muted me. So Councillor Allgate, you wanted to speak?
I just wanted to ask a question based
Yes.
on Councillor Clark's amendment. Do I take it that the inference is there that the council cannot afford to pay staff to open the Visitors Information Centre in the normal operating hours, which we have always done in the past?
I'll refer that to the General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The council adopted a budget on the 30th of June that included restricted hours across the city with obviously a slow ramping up, which has been happening, but that was within the budgeted FTE that we have. So there was no allowance made in the adopted budget on the 30th of June for casual staff. So we're working within the adopted position of council and the budget constraints that we've been set.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you want to speak against the amendment, Councillor Allgate?
No, I can't believe that we didn't budget for full
Yeah,
operation of
I think
the.
it's page 16. I did check. Any speakers against the amendment? Oh, sorry, Councillor. My apologies, Councillor Allgate. I didn't realise you were speaking against the motion. No. Any speakers against the amendment? No speakers against. I'll put the amendment. All
Yes,
those-
Madam Mayor, I've got my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kennedy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll speak against the motion. I think it's almost ridiculous that we have a organisational structure that includes operating our facilities, and then all of a sudden a budget's moved and that results in half of our businesses that council owns being shut. Councillor Clark said she didn't know if she was opposed to my motion. I think it was quite clear that she is opposed to the motion. The general manager finds ways. We are the governing body of the council, and we must direct the general manager, who is an employee of council and looks for direction from the governing body. He is not the governing body. He looks for direction. He's an employee of the community. It is unfair to put that pressure on the general manager. His obligation is to the effective administration of the organisation. Our obligation is to run the city. We must look at things beyond that. That is not the responsibility of the general manager, as Councillor Clark would have you think, when Councillor Clark stated that the general manager should look at ways of opening up to get us ready for the busiest time for our tourism operations. To put that sort of pressure on the general manager is unacceptable. What it does is it sends a message to the community that it's not councillors that are responsible for the decisions that council makes, it's the general manager. It's unfair that the general manager would be given that negative perception around the community, and that is what's happened. I don't know if councillors are hearing the same thing I am, but the general manager is getting blamed for a lot of the decisions that are made in council, when in actual fact, the general manager doesn't make the decision. The councillors make the decisions. The general manager gives us his advice, and his advice, on the most part, is given in a manner that will result in efficient and effective running of the organisation, saving money where it can. We, on the other hand, make our decisions based on many things, including the recommendation of the general manager. So I'll spell it out clearly for not only the councillors tonight, but for any member of the community that is watching this. The general manager implements directions and decisions of council. The councillors are responsible for anything that happens in the community, including the closure or the non-operating hours of council's industries, such as the Visitors Information Centre, the Geo Centre, the Art Gallery. That is not a decision of the general manager. The general manager should not be held responsible for that. Councillors are held responsible, and the councillors that vote on it tonight are the ones that are responsible for those facilities staying shut. Make no doubt about it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Clark, you had your hand up.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would actually like to ask a question here.
What's your question?
Is the general manager not responsible for the staff that work under him? Is he not responsible for decisions made about their duties and the times that they work, their employment conditions? And I believe that could be termed an operational matter. I am not sure why Councillor Kennedy is trying to turn an amendment which is asking the general manager to find ways of increasing public access to council facilities to pre-COVID levels, using volunteer assistance where possible, after consultation with appropriate stakeholders and within current agreed budget constraints. A report should then be prepared for councillors prior to the October council meeting. I am not sure. I was totally confused by whatever Councillor Kennedy was saying, and I'm quite sure the public would be too.
Yeah, Mr. General Manager.
I'm not sure I followed the question, to be honest, Madam Mayor, but I think what I understand Councillor Clark was doing there was just clarifying that she wasn't suggesting that the General Manager would be making the decision, that he would then, but he would bring back a report for councillors to make a decision on. That's what I think I heard, but I'll stand corrected.
That's correct. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. With that, is there no further debate? No further debate. I'll put Councillor Clark's amendment. Can you vote for or against, councillors? And so against is Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Page and Councillor Allgate. For is Mayor Turley, Councillor Cool, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Brown and Councillor Clark. The amendment now becomes the motion. Councillors, I'm guessing nobody else wants to debate. I'm going to go to Councillor Kennedy as his right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I've said many times, the tourism industry in Broken Hill is a passion of mine. I think it's very important. I think it's important that we appear to at least be a tourism town. Councillor Clark asked the General Manager whether he was in charge of employees of council, and I would suggest if Councillor Clark needs to ask that question, we may need, or at least some councillors may need, more training in the responsibilities and the roles of each of the people that have a part to play in the Broken Hill City Council. The General Manager is responsible for the day-to-day operation, including staffing matters. The opening hours of facilities is a policy issue. That is solely the right of the governing body of council. So when Councillor Clark says she's confused, I think Councillor Clark, and if Councillor Clark likes, I will direct her to different areas of the Local Government Act that will show quite clearly that the General Manager is responsible for staffing issues. And I'm surprised at this late stage in the term of council, more than 4 years now, that Councillor Clark would still have to ask that question. But back to my right of reply, we as a council need to start driving this city in the right direction. We have had COVID. We are talking about hoping that the government injects millions of dollars into infrastructure to move Broken Hill forward. Tourism is something that we as a council can do right now. We can, if tonight was passed to open those facilities, we would be moving in the right direction, coming into those busy areas. Councillor Clark's amendment, which is now the emotion, will take 3 or 4 months to come into place. We will have the General Manager go and do whatever. It may come to the November meeting, probably not, considering a report, more likely the December meeting. Then the next time we meet is in February. So the so-called busy time of the year that Councillor Clark talks about, when tourists would be flooding into our city, is the time councillors, including Councillor Clark who moved it, will be sitting on their hands waiting for the next report instead of doing something in our most busy time. All I can say is I was not sure why people would say to me, they can't wait till September 2021. I have no doubt why people are waiting for September 2021 now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Page, do you have a question? You need to, I'm just a bit concerned that your button might not be working in time. So what's your question, Councillor? Because Councillor Kennedy's given his right to reply. You're muted, you just need to unmute yourself.
Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
The history of the Broken Hill Tourist Centre, as a lot of Broken Hill people know, was started by the people of Broken Hill with all volunteers, huge success. Broken Hill City Council have always played a big part with the working with the community of Broken Hill to get our tourist location very well much out there. So I think it's time we looked at what we have done in the past and start to reintroduce some of the committees, 355 committee and other things with tourism. Tourism is a big part of our future, and Broken Hill City Council have always spent huge amounts of money, but we have to bring the volunteers and the whole community on board. So I think that's what we need to start and do straight away. I drove past the caravan park in the last few days and they're just about stacked on top of each other.
Councillor, I need you to be part of the debate and not comment after. We need to go through the right process. All the councillors are doing very well doing that, and I appreciate your comments, but it needs to be part of the debate. So with that, I'll put Councillor Clark's motion amendment is now the motion. And I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declared it. I'll just call those out. Against is Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Page, Councillor Allgate. For is Councillor Cool, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Clark, Councillor Brown and Mayor Turley. Thank you, councillors, for your patience in that. Councillor Page, you really need to get your debate in on time, and we'll go to you before that. Okay, item 4, motion of which notice has been given, report number 16/20. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to move that?
Yes, move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Allgate is seconding. Thank you, Councillor Allgate. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like the council to consider the following arguments. The Gypsum Street roadworks has caused significant harm to businesses in the area and have caused many in business to question council's commitment to local businesses. The council could have reduced the effect of roadworks to businesses by staging construction. Council's development policy states a significant amount of actions council may take to encourage businesses to the city. These actions include paying for relocation rate holidays, building infrastructure, etc. It is important to attract new business to the city, but it is also very important that council takes care of the businesses that are here already operating. Council must lead the way. As was said during the public time by Talia Cuff from Pets Tucker, she's proud of Broken Hill and she understands roads are important. What she did say, though, was her business shut down for 2 months. It could have cost her business, 3 businesses. That's 3 businesses that could have been lost from the town. Her staff were concerned about losing their jobs. She was concerned about losing her businesses. She also stated on several occasions, completely different to what is written in council's general manager's comments about what had happened. She said there wasn't public consultation to the degree that is written in the report, which is disappointing for me. I did follow up on that and did ask other businesses and other people in the area, and they confirmed that the consultation was not good at all. So this wasn't one person that said this. Now, again, I talk about the general manager. The general manager's obligation is for the effective, efficient administration of the organisation. Our commitment goes well beyond that. I would hope that other councillors agree on this one, that this thing shouldn't happen again. We should make sure that any business we have in this community is looked after. At least decisions are made and it comes to a council meeting before a business is impacted in the manner that was impacted by out there in the businesses in Gypsum Street, particularly Pets Tucker. I also know that the deli out in that area was significantly impacted as well. This is our opportunity as a council to send a clear message. We are for business, not opposed to business. I know council has voted against the two previous motions that were completely business orientated, but I'd hope that council is not so opposed, or this council is not so opposed to businesses that they will not even consider making sure that when businesses like Pets Tucker are affected in the manner they are, it will require a council decision to proceed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Before I go to a speaker again, so I'm going to ask the General Manager. I was a little bit concerned what was raised in the public forum. Mr. General Manager, do you want to comment on that?
Only to say, Madam Mayor, that I think councillors are well aware by now that there's nothing that we say or do as a staffing group or put in council reports that isn't 100% factual and backed by evidence. So Councillor Kennedy mentioned that there was a disparity between what he'd heard in public forum and what he's reading in the report, and there's a very good reason for that. And I'm certainly not going to cast any aspersions beyond that, other than to say that every single word in the comment that I've made in that report, it can be backed by fact and evidence. If there's any fact and evidence to the contrary in what we heard in public forum, I'd like to see that come forward.
So, Mr. General Manager, was there a public consultation held?
Madam Mayor, there was public consultation held. There were meetings arranged for meetings on site with business and residents. Nobody turned up. Our staff actually walked the street and walked into households and businesses on numerous occasions to talk to residents and business owners as far up as Red Robin Deli and those businesses on the corner of Wells Street. The rapport was good, and the reports I get back from the staff were that the feedback from the residents and the businesses that they spoke to, other than Ms. Cuff, was very positive. So again, there's always room for improvement, Madam Mayor, in everything that we do, but I'm very comfortable that the level of engagement around this project was can always be improved, but it was certainly everything that is written in as a response there.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the ask you in that manner. Councillors, any speakers against the motion? No speakers against. Councillor Kennedy? I have no speakers against.
I'm going to move an amendment to my motion.
What's
Thank
your
you, Madam
amendment,
Mayor.
Councillor?
So as is written,
Yep.
and that the General Manager prepare a report about the comments that he has just made about door knocking, etc., and all documentation in relation to public consultation in that area, and all communications. I think it's important that we get that as a council.
Thank you, Councillor.
Oh, I'll speak to that if you don't mind, Madam Mayor. I'll move that.
Sorry, just get a seconder for your amendment. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Allgate?
I move that amendment because it's important from a community perspective and a councillor perspective to ensure that when these things do come up, it's on the record that this has happened, and this will give the opportunity for the general manager to put that in writing and show the community in Broken Hill as a whole that is exactly what happened. I'm sure when that happens, it will allow other people that dispute that to do the same. We as a council are all for transparency and all for open governance, etc. So I welcome that, just as the general manager said he would welcome that in his opening statements about being factual and accountable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. No speakers against the amendment. I'm just going to check if Councillor Page wants to say anything. Councillor Brown, sorry, speaking against. Councillor Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I find this amendment to Councillor Kennedy's original motion fairly insulting, to be quite honest. I think if we don't accept the word of the general manager in that report, then that's a pretty concerning state of affairs. I didn't speak against the motion in general, but if I could say, make a couple of comments on the amended motion. I believe this is very clearly an operational matter, and I know it's often seen that council uses the distinction between strategic and operational matters as a cop-out, and I don't believe this is the case. What the motion is asking for is some sort of plan about roadworks that councillors are, I take note of the fact that we have no engineers currently as elected members, so I'm quite confident in saying that we are unqualified to comment about technical issues of a plan for roadworks. I know that the major roadworks that took place in William Street have been used as a case in point, but that was a very different situation. It was very annoying to many of us, but we did get used to it, and that worked quite well, dividing the road. But that clearly won't work on every road. Everyone, the community has spoken loud and clear about the need to improve our roads. We have one of the reasons for taking one of the recent loans was to improve our infrastructure. So it's not possible to do that without causing some inconvenience. And I do regret that some businesses have suffer a great deal of inconvenience, and we hope that our council staff will get the work done as quickly as possible. But I don't believe that this is a workable, nor is it an appropriate way to ensure that that's done. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any speakers for the motion? Sorry, for the amendment? Councillor Page, are you speaking for the amendment? No, you're not. Okay. With that, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? And against? Oops. I'll read this out. In favour of the amendment is Councillor Page. Sorry, in favour of the amendment is Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Clark, Councillor Allgate and Mayor Turley. Against is Councillor Page, Councillor Brown, Councillor Gallagher and Mayor Turley. Sorry, I'll read that again. Councillor McCool, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Brown and Councillor page. So we have a tie for the amendment, and it goes on my vote. So I'll vote for the amendment to go forward. So the amendment goes forward. The amendment now becomes the motion. So I'll ask Councillor Kennedy to respond to his motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there any further debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say it was by no way meant to be an insult to the General Manager. I did not say I didn't believe
Sorry,
him.
Councillor, you've got your paper up in front of the camera.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor. Sorry. Didn't believe him. The General Manager said he disputed what was said in the public forum, and it was not correct. I believe the General Manager has a right to provide that evidence to the council and the community so that we all are completely aware. At no point would I even assume that that would be found to be insulting. I think the General Manager has a right to put his evidence forward, and the community and the council have a right to see this. What it also does, and as I've said many times tonight, the General Manager looks at the operations, the effective operations of council. And in the case of the roadworks, the main comments made by the General Manager was in the fact that it was going to be a cost savings to council, which you'd expect the General Manager to do, is to save money where he can save money. We as a council and councillors and the governing body take a higher perceived look at things, and that is that we must also take into account the effect that may have on businesses. Do we want to save $7,000 or $10,000 when doing roadworks if it means closing businesses down? I would suggest that most councillors would think that they have an obligation in that instance to make sure that businesses are kept open and operating. So it's not about the General Manager being right or the governing body being right. The General Manager, when he gives these recommendations, comes from a direction that is different to what the direction that councillors and the governing body comes from. We must understand under the Local Government Act, the General Manager's obligation is to the effective administration of the organisation. It is not up to the General Manager to take into account these other things that happened. It is up to us as the elected body. And I thank the General Manager for putting his reports in and putting the reports in a way that spells out that he's looking after the organisation in a financial, productive way. But that is only part of our decision, not all of our decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can we, all those in favour and against? We just got a few more to vote. In favour, Councillor Allgate and Councillor Kennedy. Against, Councillor Page, Councillor Clark, Councillor Brown, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Cormier-Turley. Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 9, notice of rescission motion for which there is none. We now move to item 10, report from delegates for which there is none. Councillors, as we move into the vote for the Deputy Mayor, there is 2 processes for this. The item 1 is that the Broken Hill City Council report number 118/20, page 42, the election of the Deputy Mayor. I need a resolution that Broken Hill City Council report be received, Council elect the Deputy Mayor at this meeting, and that the Deputy Mayor be elected for a 12-month term concluding at the September 2021 local government election. The voting for the Deputy Mayor election be open voting, that is a show of hands or a show of a button, and that the results of the election of the Deputy Mayor be sent to the Office of Local Government and to the Chief Executive Officer of Local Government New South Wales. I just need a motion for this and then I'll hand over to the General Manager. Moved by Councillor Brown. and a seconder by councillor Clark. Okay, no debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
I'll move an amendment, Madam Mayor.
What's the amendment, councillor?
As written, it's instead of a show of hands that it be secret ballot. I think I'll move an amendment if I can get a seconder.
A secret ballot in a Zoom meeting?
Well, that's the right of a council to go that way.
That's okay, I'm just checking. So you have, I'll just write this down, that the voting, so you're moving that way, councillor Kennedy?
Yeah, if I could have a second, I'd speak to it. Thank you.
So we'll just have to clear all the how to votes while we deal with this amendment. Just seconder. Thank you, councillor Allgate. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason I move this is, as councillors would be aware, I have gone for deputy mayor on a number of occasions. People always vote with their party line or their caucus line, I'd say. That's what it would be called. I'm given the opportunity for those councillors that may want to go away from the caucus vote, the opportunity to vote for someone else other than who they have chosen during the caucus process. So I move it be secret ballot to make it a more democratic process that the community can be more happy with, knowing that people can vote the way they want without the fear or threat of Sussex Street taking detrimental action against them for voting against what the Labor caucus says. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers against? If not, I'll speaker against councillor LeCour.
Madam Mayor, I'll just speak against that motion. I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. No one tells me how to vote. No one holds an axe over my head on regarding how or when I vote. That's all. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you,
why I reject that
councillor.
amendment.
Thank you. With that, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? And against? In favour is councillor Kennedy and councillor Allgate. Councillor Clark, you haven't voted yet. Thank you. Against? Councillor Page, councillor Clark, councillor Brown, councillor Gallagher, councillor LeCour and Mayor Turley. The amendment is lost. We'll go back to the original motion. Thank you, councillors. I have moved by councillor Brown, second by councillor Clark. Councillor Brown, would you like a right of reply as the mover of the original motion?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Thank you. We'll clear all buttons. All those in favour? So all those in favour, councillor Mayor Turley, councillor Cool, councillor Gallagher, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, against councillor Kennedy, councillor Allgate. Thank you, councillors. That motion is carried. I'll hand over to the General Manager to be the returning officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I should appoint the General Manager to be the returning officer, and I'll hand over him to conduct the election.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. To date, we've received 2 nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor. One from Councillor Adams, received on the 29th of September, and one from Councillor Kennedy, received today on the 30th of September. Are there any, before we go to the vote, are there any final nominations? If there are, we'll need to do it by email, including movers and seconders and a confirmed nomination form. No? Okay, well, we'll move on. So let's do this by a show of hands. That's the blue hands. I'll read them out in the order that they've been received. So the first nominee for Deputy Mayor is Councillor Adams. A vote by show of hands, please, the blue hand. Thanks, councillors. That's we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes for Councillor Adams. And by way of a show of hands, blue hands again, nominee Councillor Tom Kennedy, show of blue hands. Thanks, councillors. We have 1, 2. So that's by a vote of 6 to 2. I declare Councillor Adams Deputy Mayor for the next 12 months. Congratulations, Councillor Adams.
I don't know if you can clap now. Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. We'll move on to item 2, the Broken Hill City Council Report 119/20, appointment of delegates to committee for September 2020, page 45. Councillors, before we put this to a vote, we do have a vacancy for the Norm Fox Sports Community Committee. Any of the councillors would like to nominate for that? No councillors, I'll nominate for that then. So Lisa, if you can add me to the list for that. Can I have a mover for this report? Moved by Councillor Cool, seconder. Councillor Brown, thank you. Councillor Cool, do you want to speak to this?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, you have your hand up still. Did you want to raise an issue?
Second.
Yes, you do.
Madam Mayor,
Sorry?
it's just a mistake. I'll take
Okay.
my down.
Okay, thank you. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 3, report number 120/20, page 51, disclosures of interest returns. Do I have a mover? Councillor LaCour. Seconder is Councillor Clark. Don't need to speak to that, councillor. Self-explanatory. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declared unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to item 4. Broken Hill City Council Report 121/20, page 53, Councillors' Professional Development. Do I have a mover for this? Sorry, councillors, I've got a bit of a croaky voice. Do we have a mover? A mover for this motion? Sorry, Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Clark. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We probably all feel less than enthusiastic at the idea of more training, but I believe this is quite a valuable exercise, and I am mindful of the fact that the staff who've put a lot of time and effort into this very lengthy process have requested that the councillors also take part in it. And I also note that it is an opt-in proposal, so that those people who really don't want to take part don't have to. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cool, you've got your hand up. No, put your hand, thank you. Any speakers against? Speakers against? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I speak against the motion. It's $50,000, doesn't include GSD, doesn't include travelling, doesn't include printing. We're looking at maybe $70,000+ for what is described as a councillor retreat, an interview. I think many in the community probably think when councillors are not having face-to-face meetings so that they cannot attend council meetings. I know the people from Cananda Road would have liked to have come to a council meeting tonight. There was 20 or 30 of those. There was also many from the tourism industry that would have liked to have come tonight, though we don't have it. We saved money on Gibson Street road works, etc. Then we talk about spending maybe as much as $70,000 on what is described in the report as a councillor retreat and 45-minute face-to-face interviews. I think when it comes to spending public money, the community expect us to be very efficient when it comes to spending our money. And even if this was at the beginning of a councillor term, potentially it could be a good thing. But as we all know, there is a council election in September next year. So we may get this done by, I don't know, whenever. But the reality is there is less than 12 months to an election. There'll be even less time once this training goes on for councillors that potentially won't be there in 10 months, 11 months' time. Council deferred this resolution last time for the next council. Now councillors have changed their mind. Maybe councillors think there's a good chance they'll be re-elected. After some of the resolutions that were passed tonight, I would have to say I probably strongly disagree with that, unfortunately for some of those councillors, maybe even myself, who knows. But spending $70,000 potentially of ratepayers' money for a councillor retreat for councillors that may not be there in 10 or 11 months' time is, I think, a gross waste of ratepayers' money. And I'm sure any member of the public that may be taking the time to watch this live feed would agree with me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers, further speakers for? Councillor Cool? You're on mute, councillor. We need to unmute you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
It was pointed out that it was an opt-in program for councillors requested by the staff. I'm wondering if I could ask a question of the general manager. What was the reasoning behind that request from staff?
Well,
Mr. GM.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Well, I mean, the change management program that the staff have been on is around, firstly, creating values and behaviours that are considered appropriate right across the organisation, but more broadly, it's been about a culture change process in our organisation, making people accountable and aligning behind a set of values that everyone agrees with, and that becomes the norm for. I guess for future employees of the council and standards of behaviour and the way people are expected to act. I mean, that's a very quick overview of what we've been through and doesn't really do it justice. But I guess in terms of being able to work on behalf of the community in the best possible way, this program is really about ensuring that alignment happens not only at the staffing level, but at the elected or the board level, however you might want to describe the governing body as it's been described, and making sure that everybody's rowing in all those that want to be involved, at least from the elected perspective, that everybody's, the values and the behaviours that we're exhibiting as an organisation are consistent right across the board and are consistent with what our community would expect. I mean, that's a very broad overview of the program. I mean, there's obviously a little bit more information in the reports itself, having, I guess, going directly to your question, having the council, aligned or ensuring that we've got that alignment right across the board, will be, I think, very useful for us as an organisation and the sort of confidence we want to instill in the community more broadly.
Thank you very much for that response. I've got another question.
Yes.
Oh, good, Madam Mayor. it says it's an opt-in program. What happens if no councillors opt in? Is there still a cost, or is it just waived?
No, I'm guessing that
Or
if
not
no
charged.
councillors opt in, I'll pass to the general manager. If we're not participating, so we're not paying, I'm guessing, Mr. General Manager?
Yeah, correct, Madam Mayor. I mean, I think we'd obviously, if for instance, we can't get, I mean, we hadn't really thought about that as a potential option, but I mean, I think, you know, if we can't get any more than say 3 or 4 councillors that are interested, then it wouldn't be worth running the program. So certainly if we get 0 interest, it won't run, and therefore there's no cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. Was there speakers against? No speakers against. Councillor Brown, would you like a right of reply?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, if all that, I'll ask to put the motion. All those in favour and against? Councillor Kennedy, thank you. All those in favour, Mayor Turley, Councillor Cool, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, against, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Page and Councillor Allgate. Thank you, councillors. Move to item 5. Report number 122/20, page 69, the Local Government New South Wales Annual Virtual Conference, 23rd of November. This is endorsing the conference motions that we have submitted, or would like council to submit. One of them is about, I'll just read this, that the Local Government New South Wales strongly oppose the introduction of universal postal voting for future New South Wales local government elections. That's from myself. And we also have another motion, the Local Government New South Wales lobby the New South Wales Government in the strongest possible terms to ensure that recommendation 34 of the 2016 IPART review of the New South Wales local government rating system does not become legislation because of the severe and adverse financial impact this will have in all mining affected communities. And also it relates to delegation to myself and the Deputy Mayor. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Seconder, Councillor Clark. Councillor Brown, did you want to speak to the motions?
Oh, not at any great length, Madam Mayor. I certainly would commend that motion from Bland Council as well, of course, especially given that we've been discussing rating tonight. And if the government did decide to adopt the IPART recommendation, that would have a very severe effect on mine rates, and that amount too would have to be redistributed to someone. So I think that's a really important one to keep an eye on and certainly support.
Thank you. Speakers against? No speakers against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Clark, thank you. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 6, report number 123/20, page 88. This relates to the draft annual financial statements. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Brown, seconder. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Cool. Councillor Brown, did you want to speak to the motion?
No, Madam Mayor, this is just the preliminary report anyway. We'll wait till next month.
Thank you. Speakers against? No speakers against. I'll move the motion. All those in favour? All those in favour, Mayor Turley, Councillor Brown, Councillor LeCool, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, against Councillor Kennedy and councillor Allgate. Thank you, councillors. Declare it carried. We move to item 124, report number 124/20, page 95. This is the minutes of the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee. Can I have a mover? Councillor Gallagher, seconder. Councillor Clark, thank you. Councillor Gallagher, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, Madam Mayor, it's all before you in the report. Just I commend the report.
Okay, speakers against? No speakers against? No speakers against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Declared that carried unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 8. This is report number 125/20, page 102. This is the adoption of the draft smoke-free playground and sporting reserve policy. Do I have a mover? Moved by councillor Clark, seconder. By councillor Brown. Councillor Clark, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, simply to say at this juncture, Madam Mayor, that that it makes perfect sense. It follows on from a previous policy of council, and it follows the health guidelines as given by the public health guidelines as set out by the New South Wales State Government Health Department.
Thank you, councillor Clark. Speakers against? No speakers against? Okay. Councillor Clark, do you want to say anything else? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And against? Declare that carried unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 9, Broken Hill City Council Report 126/20, page 107, the adoption of the public art policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Clark, seconder. Councillor Brown. Councillor Clark, would you like to speak to the motion?
This only to say, Madam Mayor, that this is one of a number of policies which has been adopted, developed and adopted over a period of this year. It is a much needed policy, this public art policy, and it has taken several months to develop. I'll just leave it at that for the moment. Thanks.
Thank you. Just checking, councillor Cool's got his hand up. No, you're fine, councillor Cool, just clear that. Speakers against, his hand keeps going up. Speakers against? No speakers against. Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declared. Against, in favour is Mayor Turley, councillor Cool, councillor Gallagher, councillor Brown, councillor Clark and councillor Page. Against is councillor Kennedy and councillor Allgate. Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 10. That is the City Council Report 127/20, the Investment Policy Review, page 126. Do I have a mover for this? Thank you, councillor Brown. Seconder. Thank you, councillor Cool. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to the motion?
Only to say, Madam Mayor, that I had a bit of initial difficulty with this policy, but after reading the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Investment Committee and listening to the explanations given by our Chief Financial Officer and rereading it, it was quite a difficult read. But I'm now confident that I'm very comfortable with the direction that the policy is taking us. So I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, councillors. Any speakers against? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm not only uncomfortable with it, I'm still uncomfortable with it. I think the COVID pandemic has shown us the risk that is taken, the risk that we have with our investment policy. It resulted in uncertainty over that period, makes it very difficult for council to actually say exactly what they're going to get from returns on investments. It showed that during reports there was mention that council had lost money, and when in actual fact the guesstimate the council had on investments didn't return as per the budgeted items. For that reason, I cannot support a policy that doesn't deliver certainty to the community. I know everyone likes to earn more money than what banks pay, but to earn that extra money, it results in riskier investments. And I think as a council, we shouldn't be taking any risks. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers for? No more speakers for. Councillor Brown, would you like a right of reply?
No, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Against? So against, Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Allgate. In favour, Councillor Page, Councillor Clark, Councillor Brown, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Cool and Mayor Shirley. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move to item 11, report number 128/20, page 145, and this is the investment report for August 2020. Do I have a mover for this? Moved by Councillor Brown. Thank you, councillor. Seconder, Councillor Clark. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, Madam Mayor, I was waiting for someone else to move it, but remembering that Councillor Nolan's not here, he often moves this one, so I'm happy to move it in his absence, but I don't wish to speak.
Okay, any speakers against?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not speaking against, just a question. I'll just go to the page so all councillors know which. On page 147, this is a question, if you could answer it, you might have to hand it over to someone else. In our domestic waste management reserve, and I asked this last meeting, so I know basically what the reason that is. So the question relates to that. So it's gone down from about 3.5 million down to 1.6 million last report, down to 973,000 in the domestic waste reserve for this period. It was stated last meeting by our Manager of Finance, Mr. Nankivell, that this is expected to be topped back up in our September quarter once that revenue starts to come in. Council receives about $18 million per year in rates, or about $4.5 million per quarter. Just a quick add up, there's been about 2.6 million spent out of waste reserves over that period, which leaves only about, so if that was all topped back up from the September quarter, we're looking at only about just over $2 million we'll have to spend. Is this a good financial position that council is, that we're now raiding our reserves to operate? We don't actually have enough money between quarters to operate without raiding the reserves. Could the mayor or the general manager explain how is this a good position, and do we have a cash flow problem? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. General Manager.
Madam, I might hand over to the CFO, who I'm sure would be more than happy to respond.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, to answer your first question, Councillor Kennedy, no, we don't have a cash flow problem. You can see with our operating capital and return of restrictions at 19 million in August, so no cash flow issues at the moment. We were tightening up to make sure we had liquidity due to the COVID-19 restrictions. And to answer your first point that you made mention of, that last meeting I said that you'd start to see that top up in the domestic waste management reserve in the September quarter. This report's for August, so we will see it start to top up in September as the rates that were ordinarily due on 31 August now due 30 September. So as those rates come in at the end of this month, next council meeting, you'll start to see that increase as long as everyone is being paying their rates on time at the end of the month. It'll start to replenish, and then you'll see that consistent amount of money throughout the rest of the year as you have it in previous years.
Thank you, Mr. CFO. We have a question from Councillor Clark, and then we'll go back to Councillor Kennedy.
It's just a comment, Madam Mayor. It's good to hear that the T-Core interest on our $10 million loan has dropped further to 1.32% from the original 1.8. That must be a good thing.
Thank you. Very good thing, I'd say, and a very good response from them. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just thanks to Mr. Nankerville for commenting or answering that. So what the manager of finance perceives is going to happen is that once we top that money back up to what it should be over the after the September quarter, we shouldn't have to go into that reserve again and for the rest of the year.
Mr. Nankerville.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kennedy, the Domestic Waste Management Reserve has always worked as a carriage forward balance at the end of the year as rate income comes through for domestic waste. That's the income line, and then all expenditure from the Domestic Waste Management Service from the year comes out of that reserve. So the reserve is continuously moving up and down because it's actually our operating fund for domestic waste. So it's not a set reserve that just stays stagnant. It continually goes up and down as incomes, as we receive rates, income for domestic waste, and then as we expend it on materials and contractors and our staff to operate the domestic waste service, that obviously will start to reduce that amount again.
Councillor Kennedy, you have another question?
Yeah, just one more question, Madam Mayor. Some of the councillors that have been around a long time, the waste reserve was building up quite nicely because we were looking at or understand that it's probably going to be very shortly that council are going to have to actually open up a new waste reserve, and it was planned and looked at a bit closer to the sewage farm there. With only that amount of money in the reserve and with it not going to be topped up to those sort of levels we've seen in the past, are we still in the same position in being able to afford to relocate that waste reserve when we need to? Thank you.
Mr. Nankerville?
Yes. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kennedy, I think the land that you're talking to, Council purchased in last year's budget, so that land's there. The current life of the tip is still in, don't quote me, but it's still in excess of 20 years of life on the current landfill before we'd have to look at digging out a new landfill and lining it. So we're definitely working towards the remediation cost, which is built into the domestic waste management fee that every ratepayer gets each year. And the reason why it has started dropping down over the last probably 12 months is because we're starting to spend money on our infrastructure and plant and equipment, and making sure that the operators out there have the appropriate plant and equipment, and also, like I said earlier, the non-payable rates being deferred for that extra month has really impacted the reserve for this month.
Thank you, Mr. Mankerville. No speakers against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And against? Declared it carried unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 12, report number 129/20, page 159. This is the proposal for Christmas and New Year's Eve. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover? Thank you, councillor Brown. Seconder. Thank you, councillor McCall. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to this motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move this, but I'd also like to move that we perhaps develop a few more ideas to celebrate Christmas and New Year's Eve. I understand from discussions, information that we were given at a couple of days ago at the council briefing, that there's a possibility that some additions to what's suggested here will be possible, but I'd like to see whether we can maybe put a bit more money into decorating the CBD, not only Argent Street, but the other parts of town as well. If people are going to be not able to gather in large groups, it is important that the whole of Broken Hill is part of some sort of celebration. I think it is really, really important for community mental health, if you like, to see if we can start the year on a positive and celebratory way. We won't have carols by candlelight, and I know that there are plans to find a alternative to that, but I think, you know, maybe there's a little bit more that we can do about Christmas and New Year. So I suppose I'll move that further investigation be made into appropriate ways to celebrate the festive season.
Thank you, councillor McCall. You're happy with seconding that? Thank you. Speakers against? No speakers against. As such, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Allgate, you're voting? Or against?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. The item 13 is the, I need to, councillors, I have a conflict of interest in this one. As such, I'll step outside the chamber. Can I call for a nomination for someone to chair this part of the meeting, as the Deputy Mayor isn't with us?
I move that Councillor Brown be chair the meeting while you're absent, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Brown, you're okay to chair? And I'll step outside the chamber. Thank you.
Right.
Or the chamber, the rooms.
Is the Mayor in the waiting room?
The Mayor has left. I will put her in, Councillor Brent. She's actually left the room, but
Physically left the room.
I'll formally remove her from the.
Right. Whatever's appropriate, Mr. General Manager.
Done.
Right. So we have a motion before us. Is there a mover?
We have Councillor Clark has moved, Madam Chair, and Councillor
Moved by
Gallagher
Councillor
has
Clark. Is there a
seconded.
seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Clark, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes.
Move your motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Sorry, yes, Madam Mayor.
Acting. Well,
Acting
Chair.
Mayor. Madam
Chair.
Acting Mayor. I'd also like to add a 0.5. I just want to amend it by adding a 0.5 there. That Golf Broken Hill provide a report to council in 12 months about the financial status of the golf club. Now, I'm moving to support this motion following a presentation by Golf Broken Hill the other day, and hearing about the particular circumstances that Golf Broken Hill find themselves in.
Councillor Clark, I just need to check whether Councillor LaCourt as the seconder is happy to accept that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councillor Gallagher, Madam Chair.
Councillor
was
Gallagher.
Councillor Gallagher, I think,
Yep.
seconded.
Thank you. Go on,
Happy
Councillor
with that.
Clark.
We're right?
Yep, we're right.
Okay. The golf club, of which I'm not a member, has a membership of 280 people, I think. That's men, women, children, social members. And we know that the golf club supports tourism and our community with visits from other playing groups from outside of Broken Hill. They come here and they play comps and they have accommodation and they eat meals and go around and, you know, have a look at our tourist facilities, etc. And also they hire out the clubhouse to local groups for functions and raise money like that. The golf course, I don't think anybody would argue with this. The golf course is notably one of the most beautiful and has been maintained by volunteers due to their financial circumstances. Those volunteers certainly work very hard there. And we have to say under very adverse conditions when we take into account the drought and COVID. They've had a bit of a struggle. And certainly their water requirements, electricity, etc., they certainly incur considerable expense. I would like to have, I know that there is a request there for $6,000 to be put aside as a community grant there. And I would like at the end of 12 months to have a bit of a report from the Golf Broken Hill just to see how they are going financially and managerially. So I'll put that forward, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Is there a speaker against? If there's no speaker against, I'll...
Councillor Kennedy, Madam Chair.
Oh, I can't, I'm sorry, I can't see. Right, Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'm happy with the first 4 points. The 5th point, I think, is not needed. We are virtually giving a rate holiday to that, which we have done to many organisations over the years that are community minded. This was brought out by a private organisation and which put them into a considerably harder spot than what they were before that happened. I think it's important that council provides this assistance it's important the council provides this assistance without the golf club having to provide the council with what I would consider probably confidential information that really council does not need to see to give a $6,000 community grant to substitute rates each year. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Any further speakers for the motion?
Can I
Yes,
comment?
I'd like to speak for the motion.
Councillor Gallagher?
Although I do agree with Councillor Kennedy in relation to not really showing their funding avenues if we do give them the money, but I believe that just goes to show that the community, if they do that, it's nothing commercial in confidence at the present stage. It just goes to show that how we've spent our money and how benefit the Broken Hill community will be. Look, we're going to get a lot of visitors coming into Broken Hill when the COVID finishes and the golf course opens up to its full capacity. It'll be the value for that in accommodation, in meals, in visitation to different facilities in Broken Hill. I think it'll excel. But look, I do believe just that small 0.5 that the Councillor Clark has put in. I think the Broken Hill Golf Club wouldn't mind that. It just goes to show the community of Broken Hill that when we do give some extra money to certain areas, it is well done and well spent. That's as far as it.
Councillor Gallagher, are there any further speakers against the motion?
I'll move an amendment, Councillor Brown.
Councillor Kennedy?
I move items 1 to 4.
Do you have a seconder?
Hopefully.
Councillor Aldgate has seconded, Madam Chair.
The amendment has been seconded. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes, I'll
Councillor
just speak to the amendment briefly. As I said, the golf club is very important. They are going through difficult times. There's a lot of people talking about what's happening out there, and I think as far as their finances need to go, that's best kept with them. We're talking $6,000 for rate subsidy. I think that it is in the best interest of the community that their finances are kept private for themselves. If it was a big amount of money that was for other things, I would like to see their finances. But as far as a grant offsetting their rates, in my opinion, is not warranted. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to let you know that part of this motion that requires an annual application through the Community Grants Assistance Grants Program, a key component of that is the provision of a set of financial statements as part of that process. So if that helps or hinders.
Yes, I'm aware of that. So it would be a duplication. Are there any speakers against the amendment?
Can I speak for it? Oh yes.
For the amendment, we're debating Councillor Kennedy's amendment, which is your motion without.
Yeah. So you want a speaker against?
I want a speaker against Councillor Kennedy's amendment.
That's right. That's me. Okay. I'm going to say that I would like to keep that in the original recommendation, that amendment. And the General Manager has actually just beaten me to the punch. While I was listening to Councillor Kennedy, it sounded like he was implying that I was making some disrespectful sort of reference to the golf club and trying to invade perhaps some element there of their privacy. Nothing could be further from the truth. As Councillor Kennedy is quite well aware that when groups make application to the Community Assistant Committee, Grants Committee, they have to provide their details. They have to provide their financial details, a financial report to council, to the committee, and nothing is spared. In fact, they go a lot further than what I am suggesting. All I would want to know is how the golf club was progressing. I would not want to necessarily have every tiny little detail, but if community groups are taking money from the council through the community assistance grants, then they are required to provide that financial information. And all I am asking is that they would give that in a report at the end of 12 months. And then perhaps, let's just assume, perhaps they have some marvellous recovery for some strange reason, and they no longer require assistance. That'd be nice to know. So I don't see anything nefarious at all, and I resent the implication there that there is an invasion, an attempt to invade the privacy of a group which is taking money from the community assistance grants.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Councillor Kennedy, do you wish to speak in favour of your next?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Just a question to you or the General Manager. Being part of that community grants group, and as Councillor Clark would know, I do know that those reports come to that committee. They do not come to council. They go to, we give recommendations to council. Is any of the other groups that are subject to the community grant also required to give their finances to the council as a whole, or is it just through the community grants, or is this something special that Councillor Clark has pulled out for the golf club?
Mr. General Manager.
Madam Chair, all applicants to that program are required to provide the same information, the full set of financials. To the panel, to the grants panel.
To the panel, but not to council. Is that to the council, but not to a council meeting? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, that level of detail doesn't come into the council domain.
Thank you.
Are there any further speakers?
Councillor Clark has a hand up, Madam Chair.
Councillor Clark.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will resolve this by changing the word council to the word community assistance grants panel in 12 months about the financial status of the golf club. It was not my intention to waive the financial affairs of any group before the public eye.
Right, so you're amending your amendment.
I'm amending that amendment. Yes, Madam Mayor, definitely.
So your seconder, Councillor Gallagher, are you
I withdraw my amendment, Councillor Brown.
Quite happy.
So Councillor Kennedy's withdrawn his amendment. So we're left with Councillor Clark and Councillor Gallagher's original motion. Am I right, Mr. General Manager?
You are correct, Madam Chair,
right.
with the addition of community assistance grant panel in place of council.
Yes, that was an agreed addendum to that original motion of Councillor Clark, agreed by Councillor Gallagher. So as we have no more speakers indicated, I will put that motion. All those in favour, your green buttons, and against. And I'll declare that carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We'll bring Mayor Turley back in.
Can I ask the outcome?
Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, yes, it was a 6 support for the motion with a change to item number 5. No, sorry, with an addition of an item 5 that would see financial statements on an annual after 12 months coming back to the community grants panel for review, just to make sure that everything's on track.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Item 14, Broken Hill City Council Report 131/20, page 209, minutes of the Traffic Committee meeting held Tuesday the 1st of September. Do I have a mover for that? Oh. Sorry, I lost my screen. Sorry, councillor Brown's moved that way. And
maybe Councillor Kennedy.
and councillor Kennedy, is that correct? Yep, thank you. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, thanks. It's fine. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Speakers against? No speakers against. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors, and pleasing to see there'll be a loading zone in Oxide Street. Item 15, Broken Hill City Council Report number 132/20, page 222. This is the this is the action list report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kennedy. Seconder, Councillor Cool. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to the motion?
Oh, yes, I'll just do Councillor Nolan's job. Lots of green in this report, which is good to see. Thank you.
Thank you. I just, it goes up the top somehow. Oh, work it out. Sorry, we just lost my screen, so if I look a bit confused, it's because trying to, might just go that way. Thank you, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And against, declared it carried unanimous, and I will report that to Councillor Nolan that that you did well, Councillor Kennedy. Item 12 is the committee reports, for which there are nil, and item 13 is questions taken on notice from the previous council meeting. Do I have a mover for that?
Councillor Kennedy.
Councillor Kennedy, thank you.
Councillor Cool.
And Councillor Cool. Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, that's fine, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Speakers against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declared carried unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Move to item 14. Questions for next meeting arising from items on this agenda. Any questions, councillors?
We've recorded those that have been missed.
Yeah, thank you. No questions. We'll move to confidential matters. Can I have a motion to go into a closed session? Moved by, sorry. Who moved that first?
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark. And the seconder was
Councillor Cool.
Councillor Cool.
Councillor Brown has a question, I believe.
Councillor Brown.
I have a conflict, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, we'll move you out to the waiting room.
Yep.
Do you want to get a vote first?
Oh, so we'll need you to vote first to move out into camera. So can I put the vote? Unanimous, thank you, councillors. We'll move you in the waiting room, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I've got to